Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversational Witchcraft with me, Dawn the Kitchen Witch. I'm so excited to be here. Before we get going, make sure that you like and subscribe and hit all the buttons so you know when we have amazing guests on Conversational Witchcraft. Today, I'm actually really excited. I specifically asked the publisher if we could have this particular person on today. It's Rhoda Jordan Shapiro. She has worked for over a decade as a tantric educator, teaching others to step into their power by way of meditation, movement, dance, and yoga. She leads womb healing circles for women and has a YouTube channel where she teaches meditation classes and shares wisdom of the ancient practices of tantra and kundalini yoga. Rhoda is the author of Fierce Woman and Magic Within. She also is the founder and editor-in-chief of Milpitas Beat, a local newspaper. And she lives in San Francisco Bay Area with her husband and 2 children. And so we're really happy because for her, it's very early. And for me, it's the afternoon. So Rhoda, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dawn, for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
I'm very excited because, well, for multiple reasons. Okay. I love Kundalini. So that's the first thing. I am kind of obsessed with your most recent work, which we're going to talk about later, which is Magic Within. But you talk about Tantra, you talk about body, you talk about womb healing. And right before we hit the record button, I was like, this stuff is so important and people are not talking about it enough. People are not talking about it in terms of witchcraft or magical practice. So I feel like there's a lot of like self-help stuff about it. And there's not like the crossover between the magical community and self-help and therapy kind of stuff. And that's the space where I just dig it. So before we get into all that, I want to know about like how, you've been teaching Tantra for a long time.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And it was totally by accident. I worked as a writer for many years and I still do. I still write a lot. But, I, at one point, this was like in my mid early 20s. Yeah, around there, my husband and we've been together for a while.
Mm.
And we just kind of felt like, like the sex life, we wanted something a little more juicy. We wanted something inspiring. And we thought, oh, we might as well try Tantra. We'd heard so much about it. And
Right.
we thought it might, just help us connect more deeply and be more intimate. And lo and behold, like we went to our first class and just fell in love with the practice and realized it was about so much more, right? Than,
Mm-hmm.
being together as a couple. And from there, I realized the amount of potential that I had in me. Like
Mm.
I just touched, in with parts of myself that I didn't know existed before.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, like, wait, why have I gone over 2 decades of my life without knowing that this was here, that
Wow.
all this potential was here? And why don't more people know about this? And I just felt really called to pursue this path. So
Wow.
yeah, so it's, and I just went like full into it and studied and practiced for years and with just some really great teachers, some really great experiences. And it's been over a decade now that
So
I've,
I want to back up a little bit
yeah,
because you made a very good point in saying, it's not all just about one thing. For people that aren't familiar with tantric practices, most people think, oh, it's sex. It's just all sex and it's all about big orgasms and weird positions and that's it. Right. Um, can you define a little bit for people that aren't familiar what else tantric practices encompass?
oh my gosh, it's all encompassing. Like I would say it is just the foundation to me for living, for everything. It's like this deep integration and immersion with all of life and with all of self, just that ability to embrace the totality of who and what you are. And that applies to everything, right? I mean,
Mm.
sex, yes, is a part of it, but it also applies to your creative life. It applies to your other relationships in life with friends, family. It applies to career, to money, right? Being able to tap, Tantra gives you that pathway to really tap the authentic self and to plug in a way that's like alive and makes you feel like I'm worthy of pleasure, right? Because too
Mm.
often we kind of separate pleasure and we say, oh, pleasure that's for the bedroom or that's for this and that. But actually it's something that we all lay claim to. It's our birthright. And it's something that we can infuse into everything that we do, right? Into
Mm-hmm.
every moment, no matter what we're involved in. And it's really having that sense of presence, right? And awareness in everything that you do. I feel like when you start getting more aware and more present to what's here in your body, then everything becomes pleasurable, right?
Correct.
That's what,
All
yeah,
acts of love and pleasure are my ritual. So, but you cannot fully experience those things if you're not one within yourself.
exactly. You cannot. And if you're not paying attention to your body, because a lot of times, we're cut off to this, right?
Mm,
We're so here. Like our world, our culture is so focused here mentally, and analytically, and just like here is where we see the world and experience the world. But it's really also about all of this. We forget, to live with our bodies and to really feel into and to acknowledge like what is transpiring within us, right? We're so focused on the exterior and looking at everything from our mind and thinking and judging. And but if we actually stop and pause and listen to what's here, there's so much information, right? Here in the body,
yes.
there's so much wisdom, there's so much
Yes.
potential. And that's what a tantric practice shows us, to slow down
Yeah.
and to pay attention to all that.
Yeah, and noticing when things happen, noticing where you internalize things in your body, like I am an anxious person. I struggle with anxiety, and it's a constant management. And realizing a few years ago in my own, self practices and going, when I have panic or when I am stressing or whatever, am I up here or do I feel it somewhere in my body? Where is my body holding that feeling? What
Exactly.
physical reaction am I having? And tuning into that and going, oh, I can feel it coming on because my body
Yes.
is giving me that signal.
Yes. And it's about like that first step of even what you're saying, like acknowledging that signal is so key, because a lot of us are just like, we don't want to feel that. If it's
Mm,
something that we deem negative, it's like,
yes.
all right, we just want to shut that down and move on with our day. We don't want to let that affect us. We want to stay solid, calm, whatever. But in actuality, all that's doing is that's just creating more tension, right, in
Mhm.
the body, and more just stuff that we're holding on to. And it limits our ability, right, to feel that pleasure and that expansiveness.
And limits our ability to be present because
Yes,
some
exactly.
part of us is holding those feelings back, whether they're good or bad or anxious or fearful or sad. Some part of our consciousness has to go, nope, can't deal with that right now. Got to quelch it because I have to think about this. I have to function here. I have a list of things I need to
Exactly.
do. So I can't be fully present in my relationship. I can't be fully present in my friendships or my job or whatever it is that I have to do because there's always a piece of me holding back that feeling that I'm sort of squelching. I want to ask you what came first for you, yoga or tantra?
Yoga had always come first for me. I was just practicing it because I thought, well, this is a good way to relax. And I always felt, how like at the end of a yoga class and, you're in Shavasana and you're just sort of laying there and you kind of feel like, it's like that buzz or that electricity. You just feel that vibrancy inside you. I
Mm-hmm.
would always feel that. And I'd be like, wow, that's pretty amazing. Like, I knew that there was something there, right? But I
Mm,
didn't understand. I said, okay, I guess this is it. This is it. This is what I can access. And when I brought the tantra into it, then I realized, I was like, oh, okay, that was the tip of the iceberg, just that calm, kind of relaxed buzz that I was getting. Like now I'm ready to fully immerse myself in it and expand it, right? Because what we focus on expands. And having a tantric practice really gave me the dedication and the discipline to do that, to start sinking in to the body, to start sinking into those subtle sensations that, you know, maybe we would have ordinarily just let go and not really devoted much attention to. So I really felt like yoga was a really great foundation for me to make the leap into tantra.
How did it go when you were like saying to your husband, hey, let's go take a tantra class? Like, let's, you know, like I've recently, so I've been practicing yoga for many, many years on and off. There was a period of time in which it was very, very on, and then a period in time which was very, very off. And now I'm kind of like in the middle, you know. About a year ago, we were dealing with some really stressful things. And I said to my husband, I was like, maybe we should consider going to a yoga class together. Would that interest you? And he was like, yeah, actually, I think it would. Now, he had done yoga with me once or twice before, and he was like, I don't like it. I don't like it. It's too slow. I'm bored. I don't like it. And I was like, all right, no problem. So at this point going, okay, well, now we're not doing this for fitness. We're doing it, or entertainment. We're doing this for stress relief. We're doing
Yes.
it for our souls and to allow some tension to leave our bodies. And from that perspective, he was like, oh yeah, no, this is really great. And so once a month, we have a private yoga class together. And it's,
What?
yeah, it's
I love
amazing.
that.
It's amazing. It's it's
That's
fantastic. And we have also been together forever.
how long.
And just like you, right? Um, and I imagine that if I went to him, I was like, "Hey, babe, want to go take a tantra class?" He'd be like, "Yeah, let's do that." You know, what was that response like, and how did that kind of? Because these types of practices, they transform ourselves and thereby transform how we relate in relationships, right?
Yeah.
So, how did that transform your relationship? And was he like 100% on board from the beginning, or was he like, yeah, this is going to really increase our sex life? I'm in, you know?
You know what? I mean, he's always been open and willing to try new things, which I've been so happy about because I've
Yeah.
always just out of the blue things
Yeah.
of a relationship. And so yes, he was really like, yeah, let's do this. And then he knew too, like where we were in our relationship, we wanted more. You know, we both
Mm,
had that feeling. We were both on the same page with that. And we knew that if we didn't do anything, it would stagnate, like, you know,
mhm,
everything. It would. So he was like, yeah, let's go. And I will say, because I didn't realize, because, you know, we've always been very close. We met in college, you know, my first year of college, and I know him really well. But doing the tantra opened up and revealed layers and levels that I didn't actually ever know existed. You know, I mean, just something as simple as, you know, there's an eye gazing practice for couples, right? It's just breathing and just looking into each other's eyes. And I remember doing that for the first time in one of our classes, I think probably the second one, and just bawling, like just feeling all of this emotion coming up just from that simple practice, and just seeing, because I saw within him just things I hadn't seen before, and just felt that connection even more deeply.
yeah.
So for
Wow.
both of us, yeah, I feel like it was just really transformative. And that's when I knew, I was
Wow.
like, all right,
This shit
this,
is real.
yep.
Yeah. This is happening. You know, and I think, you know, women talk to women and women talk about relationships, and men don't necessarily do that with each other. And you know, so often when I'm in a room of girlfriends, people are bitching about their partners. You know, they're like, oh, he didn't do this, oh, he didn't do that. You know, and I've seen so many relationships fall apart in the last few years, especially because you see one half of a relationship growing, deepening, working on themselves, and the other half is going, yeah, that's her thing. Yeah, that's his thing. Meh. You know, so the
Yeah.
fact that you have this amazing partner who was willing to step up and say, yeah, Let's do this together. We always say, that there's me, and then there's him, and then there's the marriage. And the marriage is a third thing that needs to be nurtured, loved, treated with care. It's a separate entity. It's a separate entity. So when we go to a yoga class, it is definitely for our individual selves, but it is also something we do to nurture the marriage because it's a shared, intimate experience.
I love that.
Right. So
That's
it
beautiful.
sounds like that's what you are doing, saying, and teaching, which I fucking love, because you're
Yes.
not over here going, I just do it as I do. I do as I say, not as I do, which is
All right.
amazing. I could literally, I know we have a million other things to talk about. I could literally talk to you about these practices all day long because
I know.
it's amazing. It's amazing. So at what point do you, so, so many questions. All right. In your book, no. I'm going to skip around because I literally
Okay.
have notes and I have like things in the margins. You can't see, like I have them in the
Oh, I
margins.
love it.
All right. Maybe we should start with this. This book is The Magic Within, and it's all about the subtext here is, I want to read it so I get it correctly. Women-centered wisdom to realize the power of your sacred feminine self. Which I almost feel, I don't want to say it's misleading, but this book is so much more than womb centered. It's body centered, specifically, womb and female body. But this came to be through your tantric practice, or was there more to the writing of this book than just the learning of the tantra?
That's a really good question. So I definitely feel that the Tantra set the stage for this. And as I got deeper into Tantra, I became immersed. Like I went through a period where I was just like so into the feminine and just studying that from all angles and like just really starting to think about myself and own my power as a witch, like just that kind of energy and knowing myself in that way. And then, I just went really deep into like feminine based things and then started also studying, like from indigenous cultures, right? Like the things that they did to care for the feminine bodies and the things that they did to care for their wombs. And I was like, wow, they knew this. Like they
Mhm.
knew this from so long ago. They were so aligned, right, to that power that they held. And I just became immersed in all that. And then I myself, I had my own struggles like this. I think too is a big part of it that was calling me. When I gave birth to my first child and had a C-section,
Mhm.
and I didn't want the C-section. Like I didn't want my womb to be cut into. Like
Yep.
I just knew at that time I wasn't as immersed into it, like an understanding of this, this wisdom here as I am now. I
Mhm.
was just kind of figuring it out then, right?
Yeah.
But I knew internally, I just knew I felt like a part of me was lost that day. And I felt bad for myself too, because I was like, well, your baby's healthy.
Mm.
Like, what are you, like, what are you crying about? What are you moping about? Like, get over it, like that kind of mentality, right? That I feel like our culture is like, yep, you're fine. You made it. You got, your
Yeah,
baby's
I'm
sick.
just gonna sew you up and send you on your way. You're good. Here's your new baby. Bye.
Yeah. Bye. And then
That's
they don't even tell you anything.
no.
Like they don't really tell you how to take care of yourself. They don't, there's
Mhm.
so much happening mentally, physically, spiritually,
Mhm.
emotionally
Mhm.
when something like that happens. And it's
Mhm.
just treated as just like they don't want anything to do. They just want to move you out and go on to the next one and do it again. And so I just felt like, oh, what is this? Like something is just off here. It's not right. I did everything that I could to go slow, to listen to my body, to listen to my womb. That's all I could do. I was like, well, I don't know what to do because there's no model for this. I feel like I know so many people in my life who'd gone through surgery there, but I haven't discussed it. I hadn't discussed it with anybody. Nobody talks about it. So I kind of just tried to heal, to go slow, to listen to myself, and thought everything was fine. And then, like, honestly, 7 years after that, I have a huge emergency, which ends up almost killing me, literally. I wake up one morning, it's like the Sunday after Thanksgiving, with the worst stomach ache you could ever imagine, the worst. I'm start sobbing, like I can't, like there's nothing, I feel literally like I'm dying. It's
Right.
like that bad. It's like 4 a.m. My husband rushes me to the emergency room. I'm on the floor of the car screaming, like worse than any kind of natural childbirth or anything. It was just really bad. And we get to the hospital, they're trying to figure it out, running all these tests. They're giving me all these medications, like to figure out like how can we stop? Because I was literally like, I was like, "Ah!" Like I couldn't stay still. It was like so bad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and then finally they figured out something that got me at least calm. And they did more tests. The next day they were like, okay, we have to rush you in to emergency surgery. We have to get you in there. And I was like, what's going on? And they said, we don't know, but we see something there and it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look good, whatever it is. So I was just, I don't know. I just felt like I was going to die. I was like, I'm going to
Yeah.
die. I'm going to die. This
Yeah.
sounds serious. And I know what that feeling was. It was the feeling of death. It really was. And so I went through the emergency surgery. I wake up 6 hours later. It was a 6 hour surgery. I wake up and they tell me, "Oh, your intestine was tied into a knot like a shoelace." And all of the tissue in it was dying. They said 60% of your living tissue in your intestine, because it was like this, died. There was only 40% remaining. They said, we tried to untie the knot. They said, we've never seen anything like it in our whole medical career. Doctors came in, they'd never seen anything like it. Nobody could untie it. We had to cut it out along with all the dead tissue and then fuse the remaining back together. And I was just like,
You're like, wait,
what?
you had to do what now? I did what?
Wait, what is this? Yeah.
What?
And he said, if I had opened you up, just, several hours later, you would have been dead, because that 60%, if he said if it had died any more than that 60, I wouldn't have been able to save you. Like that would have been it. Like you had enough to be to be alive, right? And I was just like, because he said it was just slowly taking the whole thing.
Right. And when it was necrotic tissue inside your body killing you from the inside out.
Yes. And I was just like, okay, that makes sense. The feeling of dying, yes, that was it.
So wait,
And so,
this is a repercussion from your C-section on your first child. Did you have a
yes, from
second
7
child
I
after
had a
that?
second, but that one I was like, I'm not going to do the C-section again. I'm birthing this one naturally. And I'm not changing, like I'm just sticking to it. So I got a doula and I was able to
Yes.
do it.
Yes.
That made all the difference.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
having somebody advocate for me and
Somebody who can tell you those things,
exactly,
like
exactly.
I
Um,
did they ever figure out how that happened?
so here's the thing. This is why, I mean, they saved my life. So I'm grateful for that. But just doctors, when it comes to this, when it comes to like the womb, there's a total disconnect because they only think of it in terms of babies, right? Like, okay, like we're like, yeah, baby's being born, or we're taking the womb out because there's a problem here. We don't know how to deal with it. Hysterectomy time. We're just going to take it out. So I just feel like there's this big disconnect. And when this happened to me, they just said, oh, yeah, yeah, they were very vague about it and just
Because they
said,
don't want to throw a colleague under the bus that somebody might have fucked that up.
exactly. And then they were like, this is a once in a lifetime situation. Yeah, it had to do with that C-section. This is once in a lifetime. You will never have this happen again. They said this we can assure you this is done. And I said, is there anything I can do to prevent this from happening again? And they said, well, no, you just sort of have to live your life as normal and everything's fine. And I was like, okay. I just like was like, fine, I guess I have to accept that. I mean, they saved my life. I don't know. And so my husband and I were just like, still feeling really shaky about it, like trying to figure out like what can we do? Every doctor's telling us nothing. Like, so I go about my life. And then while I'm writing Magic Within last year, I start I start feeling that pain in my stomach again. This was January of last year. And I was just like, I can't, like, are you kidding me? I go back to the hospital and they're telling me, they're like, no, it's not that bad this time. It's just a kink. It's not a knot, it's a twist. Right. And then I was just like, I can't believe like this is possible. Like they told me this wasn't possible. They said, no, 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 it's possible. So then I started really looking into this. And then I found that, you know, whenever we're cut into, right, whenever the body's going to create scar tissue
Yep.
as a way of healing itself.
Yep.
And in some cases, well, in all cases, that scar tissue is going to spread and grow kind of like spider webs across the body in that area where it was located. For some reason, there are some bodies that maybe create more scar tissue. And that scar tissue is very sticky also. So what you have happen when you cut into the womb is your intestines, right, is always in motion and can get caught. So in a lot of cases, it's okay because it just gets caught and it gets a little twist. Your stomach hurts a little bit and you have an obstruction. In my case, it twisted, but somehow got into that shoelace type knot thing, where you could die, which was my situation. And so last year I ended up in the hospital 3 times back to
Oh
back.
my God.
Yeah, for 5-6 days at a time. And it's torture. Because I don't I had to tell you the detail. Do you know like have you heard of the NG tube? It's like a
N-
nasogastric tube.
no. I mean, yes, I've heard of it, but like I have no personal experience with that.
Okay, because when you have that scar tissue and that intestine gets caught on it like that and creates an obstruction, the way that the hospital treats that is you sit there and you don't eat or drink for several days. You just have an IV, but you have a nasal gastric tube in your stomach pumping your stomach out. And you're sitting there and you have to sleep like that. And you're there the whole day like that. And so that tube gets inserted like up the nose, and then they push it back down all the way into the stomach.
I cannot. I
You have to swallow it and it goes all the way down, and then it's pumping all day. And you have like literally you have to function like that for 5 days, and it's painful and it's uncomfortable and it's the worst experience. One of the worst experiences.
And this is all repercussions from
The
a
C-section.
C-section. And this is what we do not discuss. As
Yes.
women, as a society, this is shit no one effing talks about, right?
No,
These are
no.
things that can happen. Yes, they're rare, but they can happen and they do.
Yes, and you know what? The shoelace tie, that was really rare because they were like, "Oh, how did it get like this?" I don't know. Like it just you got in that situation. That's a rare situation. But having that twist is actually something that happens a lot. Getting that twist and that stomach ache and that feeling there. When I was in the hospital last year for 3 hospital visits, it was January, February, and May of last year. I was always next to somebody who had the same situation, and it was always a woman. And even the nurses who were waiting, like I heard so many stories with the nurses who were, helping me and supporting me would say, "Oh yeah, this happened to me. Like after I gave birth, I had this within 6 months because of my C-section, or I
Oh
had
my
that."
God.
Well,
Oh
and they're
my
like,
God.
nobody talks about it.
Nobody
Um,
talks about it. And can I just say thank you so much for sharing this story? Thank you so
oh,
much for trusting me enough to to share this, and for people that are listening that need to hear these things, because I think oftentimes definitely women aren't listened to, right? Specifically, women of color are not listened to, right? Even
Yes.
more so. I'm a plus size woman. No one listens to me. Like the first thing people say to me when I walk into a doctor's office, like my arm could be broken, the bone could be sticking out, and they'd be like, "Well, you're fat, lose weight." Like that
Wow.
literally
Wow.
happens all the time. This is why it's so important that we as women have conversations like this, because there are people that go through this that need to be heard, that your story can help someone else. And they could be like, no, I know what I'm talking about because I heard this other woman talking about it. And this is how I'm feeling.
Yes. Exactly. And even if like, because for me, like the worst thing happened, right? But even just on a basic level, I feel like doctors tell you you can't break down scar tissue. They all say the same thing. Every single one I've spoken to, like 10, they all say, yeah, this is something you're going to have to go through your whole life. And you're not going to be able to break down your scar tissue. It's going to keep growing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, wow, like that's so disempowering because so last year when all this stuff went down with me, then I was like, you know what? I was rolling up my sleeves. I'm not gonna, why am I listening
Ex-
to them?
right,
Why am I listening to them?
right.
Like I need to be doing my own research. I need to be getting to the bottom of this. If they're not,
Yep.
if all they're gonna say is, sorry, this is your life. You're just gonna end up here. You have this scar tissue, you can't do anything, then I'm gonna do something about it. So I actually researched, I spent a lot of last year researching. This was while I was finishing writing my book too. And I found so many people out there who work with women to break up scar tissue and who do it through things like manipulation, like the massage type things. They have you heard of a microcurrent
Yes.
device?
Yes.
So it's really great for like acupuncture, right? Like
Yep.
you can put this microcurrent into like certain points in your body, and then it helps you to relax, or there's so many different
Mm-hmm.
ways you can use it.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also use these devices. They break down scar tissue and they soften it. So I invested in a pair of these and use them. Like my husband uses them on me all the time, like every several
Mm-hmm.
days or so, to just break it down. And since then, I have not had
Amazing.
problems. Yeah, um,
Unbelievably amazing.
it's
And
amazing.
then,
And it's oh, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, and it's great too because it's just good for your body. I mean, it just feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Doing like microcurrent therapy and just like taking time to like pay attention to that part of
Yeah.
yourself and
Yeah.
just breathe and relax. I mean, it's just made all the difference.
And this is something that's really important to understand in your journey as we talk about this most recent work of yours, The Magic Within, right? Because it is informed by your experiences. And then there's the physical component of, the microcurrents and the massage and the healing and, being in the hospital and being told by doctors, this is not going to work. And then there is this spiritual component of how do I own the energy around this situation? How do I
Yes.
manifest, control, and soothe with energetic and spiritual practices what's going on in my physical body? And that's what we're going to talk about when we come back from the break. We need to hear from our amazing sponsors, and then we're going to get back to that, and we're going to talk more about your book and those practices, because holy shit, this is amazing. We'll be right back when we hear from our amazing sponsors. We are back with the amazing, so enlightening, so forthcoming and open Rhoda Shapiro. You're blowing my mind. Again, I can't thank you enough for sharing your journey and what you've been through with your own physical health. Again, I think your specifics are really individual to you and your experience, but I think so many people have so much trauma in the womb. And your newest book, Magic Within, really dives into the spiritual healing around not only the womb, but the physical body and being connected with it. And one of the parts, well, before I get into that, we're talking about womb trauma, and yours obviously is so, so drastic. And I mean, the story is insane, Rhoda. I mean, it's insane.
I
And I'm
know.
so happy that you're well. But
Me
womb
too.
trauma can be sexual abuse.
Mhm.
It can be endometriosis. It can be um, generational trauma, right?
Mhm.
Um, can you talk a little bit about what kinds of trauma can be held in the womb?
Yes. So yes, it encompasses so much. So any kinds of, like you're saying, like sexual abuse, any kinds of situations that were negative, in regards to sex, in regards to childbirth, in regards to pregnancy, all of that stuff is held here. And not only that, but we have to also think about our relationships. So if you have had past toxic lovers, and you have not yet allowed yourself or given yourself that space to really clear that energy, and move that out of your body, because that kind of energy clings to us if we've had these relationships, right, that really didn't serve us, that weren't honoring us or cherishing us for who we are. We get all of this caught energy here in the womb. Even as simple as, if you have a sexual partner, like let's say what, maybe they didn't really mean anything to you, maybe you just had sex with somebody, but I always say, and I have a part about this in my book, is that energy, right? There's so much energy in the genitals. There, we hold a lot there. We carry a lot of, there's shame in a lot of cases that's there. There's just unresolved emotions and feelings and all of the stuff that's lingering there that we're not even aware of. And when you get with someone, sexually like that, and you're taking them in some cases, literally, of course, and then also like just,
Emotionally, yeah.
yeah, emotionally, that's what happens when you bring that part of a person to you. You're taking on that stuff that they're carrying there,
Mm-hmm.
that energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't realize it. Sometimes we're not conscious of it, but it's happening. The body knows, the
Mm-hmm.
body is holding it. And that's why I
Mm-hmm.
say, like with tantra, like getting more aware of your body, then you're able to see like, oh wow, I'm holding this here. I need to start releasing that. And so the womb is that place in the body that's, taking in all of this unprocessed stuff that has to do with
Mm-hmm.
sex, that has to do with relationships, that has to do with being a mom, with giving birth, with, our relationships also with our moms, right? I mean, all of that is tied up here.
Mm-hmm.
And just not to mention, just in general, the body is already, there are places in the body where we do hold on to
Yeah.
a lot. This for women is a big one. This heart
Mm-hmm.
chakra, this area here, we hold a lot of unresolved emotions. We hold a lot of pain, a lot of grief, right, in this space. And the heart and the womb are actually very deeply connected. And so everything that's happening here kind of drops into that womb space, that area, and there's this communication that happens between them. And so when you're working to resolve and when you're working to heal that womb, it's also affecting this in a major way.
And I want to just touch a little bit too on, you know, we're talking about womb. So in terms of chakras, we're talking about root chakra, we're talking about sacral chakra. These are the spaces energetically in the body, right? Um, and you touched on the word shame. And I think shame is so prevalent in anything related to female specific sexuality, but it also can be for those people who were born with wombs who are not women, you know, and there can be shame there growing up with a womb when you are like, I don't belong with this, I don't identify, I don't understand. And then I also think there can be shame around for those of us who were born with a womb who maybe choose not to have children or cannot
Yes.
have children. Like, oh, you're
Mhm.
just wasting your uterus,
Yep.
And I'm like, I'm not really. You know, there's no matter what you do, there's shame.
Mhm.
Especially if you grew up maybe in a very religious um situation where sexuality, no matter what it was, or gender, no matter what you chose, if it wasn't right in the middle of what it's quote supposed to be, all of that can be blanketed in shame or
Yes.
pain or you know um, horrible feelings. Also, I'd like to ask you, do these practices, can they be used by people, or these healing techniques that you talk about in Magic Within, are these also appropriate for people who identify as women who maybe don't have a physical womb?
Yes, yes, thank you so much for mentioning that, because that is important. Like I want, I would love for all who identify as women to, find comfort in this book and find ways to heal, because the womb is really an energetic space, right?
Yes.
It's that
Yes.
second chakra, right? The sacral chakra.
Mm-hmm.
All of us lay claim to this. All of us have
Mm-hmm.
this space, right? So even, I mean, a whole other book in and of itself can be done for men too. I mean, even they can tap into this energy, this womb power.
Mm-hmm.
So for anyone identifying as women who doesn't have a womb, that energy is still there. It's still there within you, and it's as available to you as it is to or one who has a physical womb there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for, making sure that that was clear, because I often am afraid that, someone might pick up this book. Oh, it's not for me. I don't, but it really is. I mean, it is. And you talk so much about the physical body and the emotional body and the marrying of those things together. One of my favorite chapters in this book is chapter 6. And this really speaks to my heart. It's the chapter is called Touching Your Womb, but it's really about touching the body and touch therapy on your own. Um, why is this important?
Because we don't do it enough.
We
Okay. We need to be doing it more,
right?
just
Yeah.
in general. And I feel like, the parts of ourselves that we might neglect, especially need this, like the womb. You will always see me if you're around me. I'm always tapping in and just touching. And because when we do that, it gives us an opportunity to really slow down and to tune in and to really start feeling ourselves, right? There have been so many studies done on the healing power of touch and how it has the ability to really, lower our stress levels and make us more just healthy and just aligned and all of that. And unfortunately, there's not much in the way of like self-touch. We're not really talking about self-touch. We talk when they're talking about touch and they're, studying it, they're looking at like the touch from a person to another person.
Right.
And then I think that's unfortunate, because then we think of it that way, but we don't think of the importance of doing it to ourselves. Like we literally have the power to just sit here and be able to calm ourselves or center ourselves just by doing that. And it also creates, I think, a deeper relationship with the body, right? It
Mm.
starts to melt away, like, you're talking about shame, right? Just in general, I feel like a lot of us have that shame because, in a lot of cases, especially as we're growing up, we don't fully understand, like our sexuality and the power that is inherent in that. And then we might tend to think of it as taboo or dirty or blah, blah, blah. You don't talk about this, right? Let's just
Right.
keep it here behind closed doors. And so there's all of this stuff that builds up and that energy that builds up inside of us. And not like there might be kind of that yearning and just that maybe longing to express yourself fully, but you're not able to do that because the sexual energy is tied up in the self, right?
Mm.
So when I talk about sexual energy, I'm talking about like your life force, because
Mm.
that is your life force. Sexual
Yes.
energy is your life force energy.
Yes.
It is that vitality that is not only present with you and within you, it is present within the entire universe. It is what is inherent everywhere. It's always vibrating, right? And so
Mm,
when we can align to that, then we feel this greater sense of clarity and of freedom, right? And of expression. But when we have that shame, that kind of puts that all on lockdown.
mhm,
So if you have shame over your sexuality, over your sexual energy, you can't be the fullest expression of yourself. It's not possible
correct.
because that energy is what informs what you are, how you're going out in the world, right? And so when we do things like the self-touch and we're able to just we're able to reclaim, right, that power, that deep connection with our body, right? That
Mhm,
feeling of like being in love with our body.
mhm.
I just think that's so important.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. I mean, the gratitude for this physical form, having gratitude for your physical form, right? Um, yeah, as I said before, I'm a plus size woman. The world doesn't like the way I look. The world doesn't like the way I look, period. End of story. It's taken my entire life to be okay in this skin and say, I'm grateful for my
Yes.
hands. I'm grateful for my arms. I'm grateful for my breasts. I'm grateful for my stomach. That is just saying those words out loud to another human being has been a
Mm,
lifelong struggle. And those are the kinds of things that you can do. Sometimes we have the shame of my body isn't the way I want it to look or the way the world
yes.
sees it, or no one's going to love me because I'm not pretty enough, or I don't fit into this box, or, you know, my body doesn't look the way I feel, but you
Mhm.
still
Or I'm
have,
getting older.
oh
My
my
body's
God, let's
gotten
not even
older.
talk, right?
Yeah.
Right. They getting off the couch and you're like, oh, yeah. I mean, that's the truth, right? Um, but to have gratitude and be able to show your body gratitude with touch. Like if someone that you love comes over to you and gives you a big hug and says, I am so grateful that you cooked this meal. I am so grateful that you took a walk with me. I am so grateful that you hugged me when I got home. If
Yes.
we are able to do that for ourselves, and say, oh, legs, I know you're tired because you walked all day, but I'm so grateful because of you. We saw these birds and we saw this
Mhm.
rabbit in a field and we got to walk the dog. Having that conversation and connecting with our bodies helps us then connect with the spirit within the body. Would you agree?
Yes. I love that is so beautifully put. Yes, it does. It just makes you have that deeper and, self-love, right? You just start like, just melting into the self more and being able to, despite all of these things you might think are shortcomings or whatever, not good enough, not enough, you actually start learning to embrace and accept
Mm,
the now, the now. And that takes everything to a whole other level, like I accept who I am right now. um and that takes you into more depth, I think, spiritually, and it also just mentally, right? I
yes.
think that affects everything, really.
Agreed 100%. And you really discuss these things so beautifully in Magic Within. Look at this
Oh,
book. It's so fantastic. Honestly, I literally said to my husband, first of all, I think every person in the world that identifies as female should read this book. But I also think that like straight white men should read this book. And I said,
yes.
I said that to my husband just before we started our interview. I was like, I think you should read this book. I think all men should read this book. And he was like, why? And I was like, well, because it really gets into like this stuff that women, female body people go through in their bodies and how we feel about things and ways that we can, kind of work through some of
Yes.
those traumas. I'm like, I think you would understand my
I love
body better if you read this book. So I couldn't say enough
that.
good things about it, Rhoda. Like Magic
Oh,
Within, I think I'm probably going to buy a copy for everyone, every woman that I know, especially for those women that I know that have physical traumas in their bodies, in their wombs.
yes. Oh,
Um, and it's like like every woman I know, like, you know,
yes, seriously, seriously.
right, right. So thank you for writing this book and being so forthcoming with your own struggles. You're really a remarkable human being. and
Oh,
you're
thank
a
you so much.
remarkable woman. I'm
I
so
appreciate
grateful that we got to have this conversation. Um,
it.
where can everybody find this book? How can we buy it? How can we learn more from you? Where can we find you online?
So the book is available. Oh my gosh, I get, because this is my second one. And I still get so excited when I see it. I'll go to the bookstore and I'll see my book there. And I'm just like, I can't believe it. um, so you can find it online. You can find it on Amazon, of course, from Llewellyn, from the publisher. And also there are some bookstores that do carry it, which I'm so grateful for, because I love, like, my favorite thing in the world is just going into a bookstore and just being there for hours and getting lost and finding
Yes.
books and all that. So
Yes.
it makes me so happy to have my book out there. Yes, so you can find it anywhere books are sold, or if not, you can order it. And I have a website, rhodajordanshapiro.com, where I share, like, so I do, most of what I'm sharing out there, I share on YouTube, with certain meditations and practices and videos and things like that. So you can find me on YouTube, Rhoda Jordan Shapiro, I think. Because there was a time when I was just Rhoda Shapiro using that. But I think look under Rhoda Jordan Shapiro. And yeah, I really hope to connect. I want to
Yes.
like, for me, it's about just getting this work out there as much as possible, just
Mhm.
so women know, right? What's possible. Women know what kind of healing is possible.
Absolutely.
So I really appreciate you having me on, and just
Yes.
your energy, and just creating a platform where, someone like me can come and feel comfortable and heard and supported. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. This is what it's about. It's teaching through sharing and connecting and learning about each other, and thereby letting other people learn about journeys that may be similar, So I'm just so grateful that you're here, and um, I'm so grateful we were able to do this. And yes, I believe the website is rhodajordanshapiro.com, and you're all over on YouTube. Like, I'm totally going to go over to YouTube channel and subscribe, because I want to do a meditation with you. Like, I want to take a kundalini class with you. You're kidding me? I mean, I would fly to California to do it, but flights are
Right.
really expensive. Uh,
I know.
you are absolutely amazing. Okay, ready? Last question.
Okay.
This is what we ask everyone at the end of an episode. It is absolutely nothing to do with any of the deep and heavy stuff we talked about. This is just for fun.
Oh, okay.
If you could have me as a kitchen witch cook you one magical meal, what would it be and why?
Wow. All right. So you mean like any kind of food and
Any kind of food you would want me to cook for you in my kitchen witchy way, what would it be and
Mhm.
why?
I would probably have to say like a nice, this is what I love, like a nice hearty kind of vegetable soup with all kinds of magical herbs.
Mm,
To me, that is just the height of just coziness, feeling
mm,
nurtured. That to me is like an expression of feeling nurtured and protected, right? So
mm.
like just this big pot of soup, herbs, vegetables, protection, nurturing love. That's
I feel like you need something like really hearty with like sweet potatoes and cannelloni beans and kale and a little bit of
yes,
spice and like
yes,
lots
that's
of
it.
like rosemary and parsley and like a hunk of bread that you're gonna dunk
Oh,
in and
the
like, right?
bread.
Is that what you're
Yes,
that's it right there.
that's it right
That's it
there.
right there. I love it.
Mm,
I
yes.
love it. That's fantastic. I wouldn't have expected you to say soup, like I was like, she's gonna say something like, I don't know. I figured you'd be like some sort of like roasted cauliflower or something. I don't know. I don't know, but like
It's all about the soup.
I would not have expected that. I
Even in
love
the
it.
heat of summer, even 90 plus degrees, like I'm there.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? That's
Yes.
hilarious.
Down with the soup.
You are amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank
I'm
you.
so grateful. Everybody go out and buy Magic Within because it's incredible and it really will change your life. Um, thank you, thank you, thank you. And until next time, well, namaste for sure. And until next time, I wish you so many blessings and so much gratitude.